Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. So this is part 3 of the Red Sea tank fiasco. Hopefully this is the last part. And in this video, I'm going to document my tank transfer process. If you don't know what I'm talking about, a couple months ago when I was working on the tank, as I usually do, I came across an issue with this Red Sea G2 tank. I noticed that the seam here was starting to come apart and allowing water to seep in between the two panes of glass. That was not a good thing. So to make the story short, I reached out to Red Sea, told them what was going on, and they sent me a replacement tank under warranty. And that tank has been sitting on my living room floor for the past month and a half because I was really trying to plan out how this transfer was actually going to work out. I wanted to make sure I had all the equipment and the plan laid out so that it's as little stress as possible for the fish, the coral, and the livestock as a whole. So let's talk about the equipment that I actually picked up, starting with these two 50-gallon Rubbermaid bins that I picked up from Tractor Supply Company. I'm going to use these to hold the rock and the coral and the fish. As far as layout goes, my hopes is that when all this stuff comes out, I'll be able to put it back into the new display tank exactly how it started. So when everything comes out of here, I'm going to try to neatly organize all the rocks in a certain pattern so that I know how everything should be going back into the new tank. Next up, I also picked up these two 200-watt heaters just to keep the water temperature stable while the transfer is in process. Then I also picked up these two Haiger gyre pumps just to keep the water circulation going during the transfer. Next, my water change water change pump and hose. This is a Mag Drive 7 that I'm going to use to pull the water out of the display tank and put it into each of these holding tanks.
I also want to point out that in preparation for the transfer, I made 35 gallons of freshly mixed salt water to cover me just in case I need it.
As far as the tank itself goes, before I pull any of this water out, I need to disassemble the equipment that's mounted onto the tank. That's going to be the two fans, the auto feeder. I'm also going to have to pull the lights down. So let's get started.
So the first thing I did was take down my 3 matrix lights. Even though I technically could have left them in place, I chose to take them down because I wanted to be 100% sure that I had enough height space to cleanly lift the coral up and out of the tank without running the risk of bumping into any of my lights. Next, it was time to disconnect all the equipment on, in, and around the tank. That being my 2 auto feeders, 2 cooling fans, the strap that was holding my tank together, and lastly, my 4 flow pumps. With those things out of the way, it was now time to start draining the system, starting with the water in the sump. While that was happening, I removed the smallest pieces of coral and rock, eventually getting to the larger colonies like this blue staghorn acro. After I emptied most of the sump, I dropped the mag pump into the display and filled both bins with the rest of the rock and coral. Once most of the water was out of the display, I began taking out larger pieces like this one. This one piece was the most challenging for me because it was a collection of smaller rocks that had been fused together by the coral that had grown on it over the years. It was heavy, awkward shaped, and fragile, so I had to be super careful about it and try not to break it. My goal was to take it out in one piece. Thankfully, with a little bit of patience and careful handling, I was able to do exactly that. The next thing I did was catch the fish one by one and put them in the holding tanks. After all the fish, rock, and coral came out of the display, I carefully laid out the pieces so the corals wouldn't be too close to each other. I had to make sure there was enough room for the flow to circulate between the coral, even if it was a little. After all, some flow is better than nothing at all. Next, I carefully removed most of the sand and put it in 5-gallon buckets. I'm going to reuse it when the new tank goes up. To lift the tank off the stand, I used these tank suction cups, which makes a world of a difference for handling heavy tanks. With the help of a reefer friend, we lifted the tank and slowly placed it on the dolly, making sure that the overflow pipes don't drag on the floor or bear the weight of the tank. Afterwards, we rolled the old tank out and brought the new tank in. With the same careful handling, we lifted the tank and made sure it sat perfectly on the stand. Now the reassembly can begin. Since Red Sea does not include overflow pipes with their replacement tanks, I cleaned up and reused the originals. While I worked on reconnecting the overflow pipes, my friend poured the sand back into the tank. While the tank was being refilled, I began picking out the first pieces of rock to put back into the tank. My goal for this task was to pick and choose the right pieces that would later allow me to reassemble the rockwork the same way it was before the teardown. Believe it or not, this part wasn't that bad. The mere thought of putting things back together was more stressful than the actual process. It was kind of like one big puzzle for me. What really helped me was the fact that when the teardown was in progress, there were encrusted parts of corals that came apart. I used these parts as indicators for how certain rocks were laid. What was stressful, however, was the part when I had to lift that giant piece with the coral grown all over it. For the same reason as before, it was stressful because I had to hold the whole piece in such a way that the weight of the rock would be evenly distributed in my hands, so none of the rocks or corals would split. Thankfully, no pieces broke in the process. Little by little, I put things back together until my reef closely resembled how it originally started. Overall, I'm relieved that I was able to get the rockscape to almost resemble how it looked prior to the teardown. At the end of the day, I'm just glad that the hardest part is over. To finish up the transfer, I remounted the lights, the fans, reconnected the feeders, powered on my lights, and enjoyed my newly transferred reef. Alright guys, so here we are, 10 days after the transfer. The biggest win, nothing has died. I didn't lose any coral, I didn't lose any fish, and I did not have any moments of instability in the tank's chemistry. Overall, the tank has been stable, and that was the goal. When I saw the seam issue first developing on the last tank, I immediately reached out to Red Sea, and fortunately they sent me this replacement tank. From that point on, it wasn't about whether to act, it was more about how to act. I wanted to act on my own terms. I chose not to modify the tank or rush into an unplanned multi-$1,000 upgrade. When I do upgrade one of these days, it's going to be because I decided to, not because a seam forced me to. This transfer was more about staying ahead of the problem. Also, I removed 2 fishes during the transfer. I took out my 5-year-old hippo tang and purple tang. They basically became bullies of the tank. At one point I had 21 fishes, but because of them, those numbers dwindled down to just 8. So now that those fishes came out, I went ahead and picked up some new guys. I've added 7 blue-green chromuses and 5 blue-eye cardinals to add some more movement to the tank. At first, it took these fishes a few days to find each other in the tank, but after about a week, they've successfully grouped up and are now swimming peacefully together. Overall, the tank's already feeling more calm. So from here on out, I'm going to stick with smaller, more peaceful fish. I'll probably end up adding 1 or 2 sand-sifting gobies just to keep the sand nice and clean. And I'll probably add some orange line cardinals if I can find them locally. As for the rockscape, the look is nearly identical, and that's exactly what I was shooting for. The corals themselves are opening up as they did before, polyp extension is back to normal, and I'm really happy with the way everything turned out. I get that in this hobby you can't control everything, but what you can control is how you respond. And this time, I'm happy that I found the issue early before something catastrophic happened. So if you guys have dealt with something similar, drop your experience in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. And if you want to see how this reef progresses from here on out, make sure you're subscribed. Until next time guys, take care.